Echoes Box Podcast is not meant to be or claiming to be a good place for therapeutic advice. The host is not a licensed therapist and is not offering any services or advice related to mental health in a professional manner. The content discussed on Echoes Box is commonly highly explicit due to the real nature of expressing honest emotions. While we don't mean to offend anyone, the reality is these discussions might be triggering to many people. Out of respect for all, please do not listen if this content isn't right for you, and forgive us if you have a poor experience. Keep your brain healthy.
Is this something you might be able to accomplish?
I'm sorry. Can't help it.
Do you really want to say that?
I just wanna know what it feels like to lose all self-control. Everyone is waiting on the sidelines. See if I let go now. I wish I believed in second chances deep within my soul, but I don't think that I can just get past this and wake up. Fight for night. You don't get to come around here, take all my control. Even though I tried, I won't be the fucking good guy this time. It's a new love. You can tell you're wrong, so taking back my control. I don't wanna waste time. It's a new love. It's a new love.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Echoes Box. This is episode 30. What's up, Doc? I don't have a Bugs Bunny impression for you. As far as music goes, you were just listening to New Low by Jones. Yeah, that's right. That's one of my songs. That's a single I'll have coming out here hopefully very, very shortly within the month of February. Kind of working around different release schedules for other stuff. But that's also going to be a song that's part of a larger album that I have done. We're just going to do a final master pass over it with me and Seth, and it'll be good to go. I'm super excited to release all that. This is the first time I've ever had music that I'm actually super stoked on. I don't know how to explain it to people who have actually liked some of my music. A lot of them are friends anyway, who are just no, that was great. What are you talking about? It's no, the music I wrote before was good. We make sure we didn't release anything that was bad quality, but they weren't songs that I liked. A lot of them I just kind of cranked out, or was fun experiments working with stuff. And especially the first songs I ever wrote, those were all just learning curves. You have to start somewhere. You have to start with stuff. Even if you don't like it that much, you make it the best possible thing that it is. And some of the songs out of that are really good. Patron, I think, is a pretty decent song. It's just not it doesn't compare quite to the music I'm releasing now. New Low alone is one of my favorite songs, but it's not even the best one that's on all the songs that I have on this upcoming album. So stay tuned for that. I'm of course going to be leaking songs track by track until it eventually comes out, and they'll all be there, and then you'll just hear it as an intro from time to time. So yeah, that's super cool. It's been about a month since we've done a podcast. Took a hiatus on purpose for the holidays. There's just too much going on. I wanted to do a podcast, but not only was there not the time, but my mental health could not possibly stand it. And in fact, that's kind of what today's episode is going to be about. I'm going to be talking about not really my experience through the holidays per se, but specific holiday items. That was for the holiday episode. We kind of talked about all that kind of stuff, but more along the lines of how my mental health's doing in general, just to kind of loop back and share those experiences, kind of come back, start of a new year, looping back to what the podcast is all about. So one of the main problems that I've been dealing with, it's why this episode's called What's Up, Doc. It's not only just a what's up, hey, we're back, but I've been to the doctor a lot, a lot. I have another appointment this week and another appointment next week. There are so many appointments. It is ridiculous. But over the holidays, I was kind of basically raw dogging it with no medicine, which really, really sucks. Those of you who have medicine that helps with your mental health issues will know that once you do not have access to your medicine anymore, if it is medicine that's actually working for you, that is, that's a really bad time. Now, I've talked about medicine in the past, and just kind of recap you, if you haven't listened to all the other episodes yet, I started off pretty much self-medicating anything that I could get my hands on that was reasonable and I felt wouldn't kill me or was worth the risk. I did everything from your classic high schooler drugs, like taking DXM through your Robitussin, started with that, marijuana, psychedelics, disassociatives, you name it. I tried it along the way there. And through therapy, my therapist was like, hey, let's, stop that and try some actual medication. And from there, we started trying to target my depression. My major depressive disorder is kind of the crux of everything. We're like, okay, we'll just target it at the source. Well, I went through and I've tried every antidepressant known to man. I've had them for long periods of time, had them for short periods of time. Obviously, the ones for short periods of time were ones that made things worse immediately within the first 2 weeks. So we had to cancel those. But literally, there are maybe 1 or 2 brands I have not tried. But if it's an SSRI or an NDPRI, I have been on it. It did not work for me, unfortunately. I was so sad, especially when Wellbutrin specifically is a medicine that worked for a lot of people. Didn't work for me. It did very terrible things for me. It caused my panic attacks to go up, so on and so forth. As the years passed, we decided that the only thing that really helped was the Xanax they gave me as needed to wean me on and off the medication. So we thought, okay, well, let's try to kind of segment things up a little bit. And we talked about general anxiety disorder and, does that apply to me and how is that impacting my depression? And, basically it's this whole web of what affects what. Do you just have depression? Do you just have anxiety? Do you have depression that causes anxiety? You have anxiety that causes depression? What about your PTSD symptoms? What about insomnia? Like all these symptoms that I have that are related to my various mental health statuses, it's kind of hard to put a pin on where they come from. And for the longest time, I thought I was just having panic attacks because I was depressed and have some complex PTSD issues. So turns out, no, I have a completely separate general anxiety disorder. And we found that out because once we started working with the Xanax, we were like, okay, well, if you're taking that as needed, and you're able to fight off the panic attacks, how do you feel? I'm like, well, not so anxious anymore. And it's like, okay, cool. What about your depression? That's still the same. I still feel nothing inside, feel dead inside, or feel the worst about myself, whichever day of the week you pick your poison. My brain wants to hate everything that I do, and I have to push through it anyway, and it fucking sucks. So no aid or relief there, but at least I'm not spiraling or not able to sleep in the middle of the night or crying on my bathroom floor, whatever have you, that I would deal with week to week. Most here lately, I'll talk about what I've kind of been dealing with that's been just awful, related to the anxiety disorder. But really, just having that medication, trying that out worked, and my doctor was able to kind of work with me on that, and eventually we got me onto a regular routine. At first they were just kind of prescribing it as needed. I have to go there for a visit to get a refill. It's one of those scheduled narcotics, whole deal. But eventually we did like the whole narcotics contract deal, and now I can go and I only need to get like a refill every 3 months. And that's much better, at least in theory. In practice, signing a narcotics contract means you have to pass the drug test. And well, that's where a lot of problems came in, because at first, for a long time, one of the things that I would do is work with my therapist with various THC products that we could get, or occasionally when I could get something from a friend, wink, wink. I would use those, and they would help me with insomnia and my eating disorder specifically. They didn't really wane off anxiety. They did. Like, marijuana for me is not one of those things that causes anxiety, but it does help with anxiety for me. It does so in a much different way than something like a benzo does. You see, marijuana or any THC products for that matter will put me in a relaxed state. Being high off of THC is just relaxing for me. I'm able to kind of chill out and be able to relax and just kind of, not have anxiety for a while. However, if I'm in the middle of some kind of nervous breakdown, if I'm about to have a panic attack, or if my head is just spinning, or I'm not in an area where I can reasonably and responsibly use any kind of THC product, that's what Xanax is for. Xanax is for targeting those really serious events that could incapacitate me for several hours, if not the whole day, depending on how severe whatever it is my brain decides it wants to freak out about. So if I had to pick a medication, which is kind of what we did, I would pick the benzo. I would pick Xanax every time, just because that is the emergency problem solver for me, and it works really well for me for managing my anxiety. And when my anxiety is managed, what we found is that, yeah, I still have bad days with depression. I still have this internal drone of self-loathing and all these other just it's so hard to describe. Listen to the other episodes on depression. I'm not prepared to talk about that today, but it helps where that is all I have to deal with. So instead of managing multiple different issues at the same time, I can just worry about the depression, and I can work around managing what the depression is doing actively in my life at any given time, and even focus on solutions for that. Think of new things that I can try, whether that's more meditation, spiritual work, whether that is talking about exercises with my therapist, it's going out with the dogs, whatever it is that I can do to kind of see what sparks that emotion or sparks that chemistry change in any way. I can focus on that. Whereas if I'm having to deal with that and could have a panic attack at any given moment with no way to resolve it, or I haven't slept in a week, whatever it is, I can just deal with that thing, because Xanax not only helps me with the panic attacks, but also helps me sleep. If I'm not sleeping for days on end, it's actually usually because I'm up night with my brain spinning and spiraling in circles and often having panic attacks. So let's dive into kind of what I experienced over the holidays like my medicine. All right, so to catch you up to speed, kind of what happened was a little bit over the holidays, say starting October, beginning of October towards the beginning of November, I still had plenty of my Xanax prescription left. So I was good to go, overall medicated, and I was set to get a refill. In fact, I had another refill already on my prescription that was ready to go. So I went to renew that, and by the time I did, the renewal for it had actually expired. I had this whole thing where it's like, oh, I'll get this another 30 days. I'll be good through the holidays and I don't have to worry about anything. I missed the expiration date for that refill. That really put things on hold, but it was okay. I thought anyway, I could just call my doctor and we would get things taken care of and everything would be fine. Now, I had smoked some of the Lord's lettuce when I was out on a trip to a location, we'll say. And I pretty much smoked the entire time I was there, right? It was a recreational legal state, so we all had some kind of pin on it at all time, if not smoked joint, whatever it was. So I did that. Then when I got back home, I still had some medicine left, so I wasn't freaking out about the appointment yet, but I went ahead and made my appointment in advance thinking, oh, okay, we'll be fine. So this month goes by. I don't use any kind of THC products at all. I'm not using anything going through November or going through December. And now we're at my appointment. I said going through December. We get to my appointment in December, right? And I go there and I take my P-test and I fail. Now, I'm not expecting to fail because the last time I did anything was at the end of October. So a whole at least month, if not 3 weeks, has gone by at just being, playing it safe. I don't really remember how much time at this point because so much time has passed. But it was more than enough. It was more than a reasonable amount of time for somebody who doesn't smoke frequently to go take a P-test and you should still pass okay. I did not. Thankfully, my doctor is super cool. They don't really care about marijuana usage. They're not archaic, but they do have to follow very archaic rules. And there was nothing they could do for me. They were basically like, hey, call back in a couple weeks. If you are telling the truth about when you last used it, it should be out of your system by then. They've also, in the past, when I've used these products before to help with sleep, when I was just starting to get on the contract and I had failed, I told them, what I was using when I was on. They were like, oh, okay, well, there's still nothing we can do for you, even though there's not a problem. The consensus is just like, we don't care what you do in your free time. Just pass the test when you come here. That's how my doctor treated everything. It was very, very helpful, very supportive. But unfortunately, I needed my refill. I was about to go through the holidays and deal with family stress, and I was having to start to ration what was left of my medication. Now, I can actually have a month prescription of Xanax for myself, and it lasts me 2.5 months. It just kind of depends on how often I'm having, panic attacks or not sleeping well. Some months are good. Some months it's taking it every day for the whole week. It just kind of depends. And thankfully this last batch had lasted me longer, and I probably would have still had some going on into the new year had I not missed my refill date. So long and short of it, failed my drug test. Can't get my medicine. I come back in 2 weeks. Now, over the course of those 2 weeks, I get some drug tests at home and I do them, and I'm beginning to pass pretty much immediately, as I would have expected. And so I go in and I make my appointment again. I'm like, hey, all right, looks like I'm passing. I'll go and take the test. They don't even make me make an appointment. They're just like, you come in, pee in a cup, we'll get you your prescription and get out. They're trying to like help me out, get it as soon as possible, and not do the whole song and dance of red tape. So do that, and I still fail. The nurse brings me the cup and shows me where the test strip fails. Now I see a faint line, and anytime there's any line, that means the drug test says pass. You have test negative, which means you pass. It's not, if it shows positive, that means there's no line, that means you failed. So showing faint negative, but negative, I don't argue with her though. I go home confused, upset, having more panic. Now I'm having panic attacks about getting my medicine that stops my panic attacks. And on top of the holiday stress, on top of everything else. So I get through the holidays and I'm pretty much down to one pill that I'm saving for emergencies. And here's the thing that sucks about that. When you're dealing with something as severe as panic attacks, like I do, you don't know what the worst one is. You can grin and bear 1,000 of them. I've dealt with so many that have literally left me in my shower for 4 hours. And so that's pretty bad, but it is also me staying awake at night for 8 hours bad, even though I'm not like crying uncontrollably. I'm just looping thoughts and stressing out. That's a form of a panic attack. What about when I just have a breakdown and cry and hyperventilate for 30 minutes, but I can't do anything within those 30 minutes? Is that when I need to take my medicine? The answer is yeah. All of those. Yes, that's when I should be taking my medicine. Any one of those moments is a completely valid use case for that. That's why I prescribed it, right? When you only have one pill, you got to decide, oh, can I make it through this? Can I survive this? And I was having to survive through panic attacks that I should have just taken my medicine for. And you know what I saved that last pill for? I saved it for the day of returning to my doctor to resolve all this. I should have used it before in hindsight, but that's what I did. And even then I only took half a pill. So how did this all end up? I've got my medication back now. Everything's actually great. It's like night and day. It's incredible. We'll talk about that. But basically I hadn't slept well in 2 months. It took 2 months for me to get my medication back in order. For each week I went through, I would sleep no more than 2 or 3 days in a row at a time, and most of the time it wasn't in a row. Usually it was 3 days of not sleeping very well or no sleep at all, then a day of sleep, then another day of unrest, and then a day of rest, a day of unrest and a day of rest. Because sometimes it wasn't full out not sleeping. Sometimes I would get to sleep, but it would be PTSD nightmares. So how that works for me is I fall asleep eventually, usually 6 o'clock in the morning, and my dreams are all just vivid nightmares that are usually related to events that come up from my PTSD in the past. So some of that is related to like my dad who died when I was 18, or some of it's related to like family stress or feelings about my mom or how I was treated then. Some of it may be from past relationship trauma. Some of it may be from when my uncle died. There's lots of death and heartbreak and other, even I have some sexual trauma from the past as well, related to when I was a kid. There's all kinds of stuff that my PTSD really feeds on, and it does really well at night in my dreams compared to anything else. Surprisingly, going through the day, even if something kind of triggers it, I don't lose control the same way my anxiety does now. My anxiety can pop off for dumb reasons like having to go to the store or something. And most of those kind of things, I've lived life long enough, I've learned how to deal with them. But the things that incapacitate me are not triggers. I don't really get triggered, so to speak, by certain things. The only time I'm ever really, truly, I guess, upset by something externally that reminds me of something about my own mental health is when I'm already in the weeds. Like if I'm already feeling really, really depressed one day and somebody starts talking to me about somebody who is dealing with an eating disorder on their own, then maybe I'll start to reflect on my own eating disorder, my own body dysmorphia in my state of depression, and it'll get worse, and I'll have to be like, hey, normally I can handle this conversation, but right now I can't. Put it on pause. I'm okay with you telling me about it. You didn't do anything wrong. Just not right now. Kind of, my mental state can't handle that. That's usually the kind of places where I get triggered. Like if I'm already anxious and having a panic attack, you could trigger more anxiety by presenting more things that are anxiety driving. But my PTSD doesn't really work with triggers the same way. It just kind of pops up on its own, or it's commonly here lately been in the form of nightmares. And when I wake up from those nightmares, I wake up incredibly stressed and guess what? Anxious with no medicine to take. So, yeah, unrest could have been that, or it could have been just literally not sleeping. So my therapist helped me with this wonderful idea that I should get a medical marijuana card, because she likes it when I am able to use something like a edible, even if it's like something like one of these HHC gummies that you can go to the gas station and get. If it helps, if those things are helping, then having access to them is important. What really sucked about this period of time is normally when I'm just out of medicine and I've got to wait to get more, I would take a gummy and get some sleep for the weekend, or at least be able to relax and get some relief that was planned on a given day. Like maybe on the weekends I can just take some gummies, sit down and watch a movie and not do anything because I've been stressing out and freaking out all week. I didn't have that option, because if I take any of those products, whether they are just straight up marijuana or if it's some kind of THC derivative, even CBD, fun fact, all of that will pop as a positive on a drug screen for THC, no matter if it's completely legal and you can go to the gas station, smoke shop and buy it, or if it's something from your buddy Doug that lives under the troll bridge that your mom thinks is how you get marijuana, even though that's totally not how it works. Unless you know a Doug under a troll bridge that sells some dank weed, let me know. Shout out to all my Dougs. I have this is a side tangent, but I have this like breakfast tray that's like the cartoon Doug. It's old Nickelodeon cartoon, if you're not familiar with it. I've had it since I was like probably damn near 6 years old. And it used to always be my sick tray. It was the tray that I would have my little tomato soup on or my chicken soup on when I was sick and had to lay in bed or lay on the couch and couldn't get up and eat, and I had to eat off of that. But every time somebody has seen it recently that I know that smokes weed will see it and be like, dude, that's a sick rolling tray. And I'm like, what? This is my TV dinner tray. But I mean, yeah, it can be a rolling tray. Any TV dinner tray can be a rolling tray. But I always thought that was funny. Anyway, yeah, shout out to all my dogs. Point of all this being, sorry for the side tangent, point of all this being that I had no relief, no way to take any kind of break from my brain. Now, when I tell you what I did over the holidays in that time to manage it, you'll be like, how did you do all that while you had no sleep and had no energy and your brain was hurting and you were having these breakdowns? That's you kind of answered the question with the question. So what I did over the break is I developed a new course. It's going to be called the Offensive Security Programming course. It'll be a hacking course for those who are interested in information security and hacking stuff. I'm sure there's not a whole lot of overlap in the podcast there, but that is something I do, and like I said, do want to talk about from time to time. So I built a whole course on that. My thinking behind that was currently I'm just trying to pay down some debt, and I've got a great plan for it. I'll be done by the summer. Everything's great. You know, that's awesome and all, but if I could accelerate it faster, who wouldn't want to do that? And I remember how well my first course, which if you haven't checked it out already, you should, getting these plugs in there. But my first course, Offensive Security Engineering, that's also on Udemy, did really well within the first couple months. Enough that it would have made a dent in some debt like this. So I thought, if I can make another one that's just as good in quality, if not better, because now I can use what I've learned from the first time, then maybe that'll help me boost things a little. And, if people keep buying it, give me some beer money across the months and help sponsor things that I can do in my free time, like make this podcast and not really have to worry too much about being financially incentivized by it. So that's what I did. I got started working on Offensive Security Programming, of course. And I did that the entire month of December pretty much. Actually, I did it towards the end of November and finished it towards the beginning of November. But the point is that course actually isn't out yet. It won't be out around the time this episode comes out. It'll still take a couple weeks, because what I also did is I wrote a book. Yeah, I wrote another book, only this one's not about hippy dippy magic bullshit. I'll have another one of those later in the future at some point. This is a bona fide hacking book. And not only is it a bona fide hacking book, it is being published. So I'm not just a liar saying that I'm an author that self-published their own book. This book got picked up pretty quickly by No Starch Press. So shout out to No Starch Press. They've got great books like Hacking the Art of Exploitation, which is, to me, the hacker's Bible. So to be among the ranks of books like that and their malware analysis book are just, it's going to be awesome. So I wrote this book. I pitched it to No Starch Press, and this book is called Offensive Security Engineering and Programming, or Programming and Engineering. I don't even know the title of my own book. Anyway, the point is that I wrote this book, and it is a book that basically puts together both of the courses I made. It puts together the old course, and it puts together the new course content, and puts it all in one book. So the first half is actually all the new material. It's all the programming stuff. And then the second half, once you finish all the programming stuff, is all about engineering. And if you're not familiar with any of what I've been talking about, basically, this book teaches you not only how to write your own tools in offensive security, it teaches you how to program things like making your own phishing websites with PHP and MySQL, and how to make a database, and how to make scripts for authentication so you can do things like brute force attacks and login attacks. It also teaches you how to make custom command and control implants. So that's malware, if you want to sound real edgy. It also teaches you how to make ransomware, which I'm not kidding. It's in there. I actually use that as a professional type of tool every day. Now, of course, it is not widely spreadable ransomware that you can just deploy on your targets or whatever. You have to know what you're doing. But that's why the book is teaching you programming, and we're using these projects that sound super edgy and scary as a way to show you, hey, this is how you program in general. Here's some example languages. Now, here's some things you can do with that sound bad and can be used for bad, but the moral here is that it's a program. Computer code does what you tell it to do. It is not inherently malicious. So a ransomware program sounds scary. We call it that in the book, but what I really have you build is a file encryption and a file decryption tool. It's not any different from the BitLocker tool on Windows, or Lux if you're on Linux, or FileVault if you're Mac OS. It's the same type of thing, only it's a standalone program, and you can use it if you're a professional like me to help your client test what they would do in the scenario of a ransomware attack, but you can do so in a controlled manner. So talked a lot about that because that seems to catch people's attention sometimes. But that's just the first half of the book. The second half of the book teaches you how to stand up all the infrastructure for engineering, and things like standing up your command and controls and servers, standing up the servers that you're going to host your phishing systems on, standing up things to do internal penetration tests, like using a reverse VPN tunnel and stuff like that. So lots and lots of good knowledge. I would categorize this as like not an advanced book, but it's not a beginner book. It's somewhere in the middle, just kind of like if you're somebody that's already in your career, or you already know how to program, or you have a couple years in information security already, this fills the gaps that they don't teach in any kind of school, that the normal courses to learn this stuff are behind $3,000 plus paywalls, so on and so forth. So I'm trying to make this knowledge a little bit more accessible. My Udemy course will be significantly cheaper than any certification course you can buy, and the book should also be, book priced. It shouldn't be like a $200 book. It should be probably like a $40 book. But I don't have any say over pricing yet at this time. No Starch Press approved the book. I just actually finished giving them my manuscript that I convert to their styles. So yeah, all of that's coming. It could take 6 more months, but I just wanted to go ahead and say something about it now, because the podcast is the place to get all the secrets. Anyway, yeah, I did that. I did that over the month of December. I wrote a whole ass book, made a course. This book's not small, by the way. It's like a 500 plus page book. Yeah, it's no joke. I did it all while I was not sleeping. That's how I got it done, and freaking out. And this was my distraction. So that's how I managed. I forced myself to create something because I was stressed out about money. I was stressed out about time. I was stressed out about life. And I thought if I could work on this, maybe that would help. And it did help in the way that now I get to reap the rewards of all the hard work. I didn't know I was going to get a publishing deal. And I didn't know there would be such a good interest in that. But, it's great. I do get to reap the rewards from that, but that is not what my intention was initially. So it worked out for a different reason. Fast forward to now. In the last 3 weeks or so, I've been working really hard to resolve my medicine situation because I can't take it anymore. I just wanted to bash my head against the wall and die this past weekend. It was terrible. My head was killing me. I hadn't slept in so long, and it's so weird because it's like I've never experienced medication withdrawals before, and that's not what these were. Like I said, I do this stuff as needed, so it's not like I was hooked on Xanax and now I'm going through the withdrawals, but that's what I was worried about at first, because I felt like that's what maybe my doctors were alluding to when they're like, sorry, we can't give it to you, that's going to suck, just, they're like, break your last pills in half, stuff, like wait it out until we can get you back in to do this. And I was like, I've already been off it long enough where withdrawal symptoms would have kicked my ass. I'm not, thankfully not addicted to any of it or use it frequently enough for it to cause a problem like that. But what it did cause was something that I thought was unfamiliar, but that was actually all too familiar of a friend. It was just regression. All my symptoms came back. It was all the same feelings I remember feeling over COVID when I just wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. My head was always hurting. I would go day to day, go to the job I had at the time, or I didn't physically go to the job. I would get up in the morning and do my remote work for the job I had at the time and get up, work out, find some way to just distract myself in the middle of the day when work was going slow. There's just day in and day out. If I wasn't exercising or working, I was laying awake at night listening to music, trying to fall asleep and never could. I would skip all the meals. I would just not do anything. And then when I got to the weekend, I would get high as fuck on whatever pill I was picking that week just to relax. And I would only do that on the weekends to give myself a full brain break. I wouldn't do anything else. And then the week would resume and we'd rinse and repeat. I was starting to feel like that again. I was like, damn, I can't get I'm feeling all these feelings again, but I can't do anything to get some relief. Can't even just do something on the weekend. So I ended up resulting to drinking a little bit more in the evenings and on the weekends than I care to admit, just to get some kind of relief. And it sucked. Thankfully I did not do that much. I realized very quickly that sucks and I didn't like that very much. So kind of kept it to a minimum after, the first breaking point. But then from there, as I got closer and closer to time, I was like, I don't know what to do. So we got the bright idea to get me a medical marijuana card. And thankfully, my PTSD symptoms more than qualify. So I got on the phone with a doctor that specializes with medical marijuana and sent them over, all my medical information and all my information from my therapist. And they just hopped on the phone and were like, hey, I looked over your shit. Yeah, you need this. I'm going to go ahead and sign off for your card. Do you have any questions? And my big question, and the reason we're doing all this is we figured if there's a medical requirement or a medical constraint on my treatment, that the narcotics contract can be overridden by the medical precedents. And the evidence for this is that you actually get to pick and choose per practice what substances you test for. Some hospitals and should say some practices. It's not just hospitals. It's I go to a normal practitioner for my stuff, but some practices require a full panel drug test. Some require minimal drug test. Some none at all. It just kind of depends what the rules are for the state or county or even federally for a given substance that you're being prescribed. So Xanax is a Schedule 4 drug. That's going to be different from a Schedule 3, 2, 1. There's a lot of rules. The amount of times you can get a refill before your next test, the amount of refills you can have without getting a test, all these things are pretty much dependent on both the schedule of the drug that is being prescribed and also the practice itself. So the particular practice I go to has a no tolerance. If you piss hot on anything, you can no longer be prescribed your medicine. And of course, they realize that marijuana is also just kind of silly thing to block somebody from potentially life-saving medicine that they need to, get through their days. So they would scrub that not in terms of like scrubbing it from your record, but they would not deny you the medicine anymore outright. They just could not prescribe it to you until you passed again. And if you continue to fail, then they may have to test you more regularly to ensure that you're passing more frequently, so that way they don't get in any trouble. Some offices, some psychiatrists that are a different practice may not have to test you at all if it's for one single medication. And most of the times, the only thing that they really should be testing you for anyway are opiates. That's something that you really don't want a patient that's not actively prescribed that and being monitored to be taking while they're also on a benzo. That's horrible. Now, marijuana isn't great to take with a benzo. I don't smoke and use Xanax unless it's completely unavoidable, but it's not the worst thing in the world for you either. You shouldn't mix them. It's okay if you do, but generally don't. But there are some substances that you definitely shouldn't mix, and that's why they test. It's like, hey, we're legally giving you a drug that is a scheduled narcotic, so you can't be doing all this other stuff unless we are working with you on it. So the idea behind the medical card is to say, hey, you're a practice that tests for marijuana. I've got a doctor saying that I need marijuana for my treatment, and can you do anything for me? Now, I asked the doctor, how does this work? Because it's varies practice to practice. And the thing about a medical card, if you're in a medical only state somewhere it's not recreational, is the medical card is a recommendation. It is not a prescription. This is how they work around the law. So a medical card is a recommendation that a doctor says, hey, this patient should use medical marijuana, and I give them my recommendation formally. It's not a prescription. They're not writing your a script. They cannot do that. That is not legal. However, in a state where marijuana has been deemed legal medically, that recommendation can then go to the state, and the state takes that recommendation and says, okay, this doctor says this person is allowed to take marijuana for their health conditions. The state is actually technically the one that prescribes it to you. So they take that recommendation, put you into a registry, print you out a card, and this special magical card just says, hey, you are allowed to not get in trouble with however many grams of whatever particular THC derivative substance while it's on your person. You can travel with it, you can have it with you, and you can also buy it from licensed dispensaries. So in the state of Georgia, for example, it is low THC oil. And so you can carry, I think it's, I'm probably going to butcher this, like 7 grams or something. You can carry a lot. I don't, maybe it's not 7 grams, but you can carry a lot, but it can only be THC oil products. So these are things like tinctures, or they have this crazy like nose spray that I want to try. But the dispensaries are kind of working around and with the law in a way that gives us actual products that aren't just like, oh, you're going to take home a vial of oil or whatever. Eventually they'll allow edibles and stuff like that. But I can also go to other states that allow medical card kind of crossover. So states like Florida or Louisiana, I can go to their dispensaries and just get normal weed, which is great. Now I can only travel with it in that state. If I take it out of state and I get pulled over, I get in a lot of trouble, right? That's bad. But that's all the medical card does. It gives you the ability to buy and access THC products from licensed dispensaries within your state or other states that honor out-of-state medical cards, but you can only carry what you can carry within inside those state bounds. So it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card for just having any kind of marijuana product on you. It's specific to the state. It is also not just an override for medical things. It is also not an excuse for failing a drug test at a workplace. All of these things are privatized in such a way where they can follow whatever rules they want. However, while it won't help you at work and it won't help you in all scenarios to dealing with marijuana, how it helps you medically is that it is really, really dumb for one doctor to take another doctor's advice and just shove it down the drain without it even being considered. So by me going to a doctor that said, hey, you definitely need this, I'm writing the recommendation for you, I get the card, I physically have the card, and I show up to my normal doctor, and if I were to go, hey, I've got this card now, we haven't started treatment yet, what can we do here? How is this going to affect my narcotics contract? And what my doctor that prescribed the medical card said, recommended the medical card said was they should be fine with it and be able to help you out just fine. It'd be really silly if they didn't. That's why you're getting this. So they should be able to work with you. Just tell them what's going on. I was like, cool. So that was my whole plan, is that there's 2 problems. I talked about how I had tested positive. I went home. I did my drug test at home. It said I was passing, or it says I was not failing. All these terminologies are confusing even to me sometimes. Anyway, I was not failing my drug test, and I went and got another appointment, and I still didn't pass at the office, which I thought was funky. If you recall me remembering the faint line on the original test, I was like, there's no way I'm not passing. What the heck? They offered to send it off to a lab for me just in case they were having some issues with their testing. So they did. The lab also found it. I was very, very confused because at home I was testing clean. I hadn't used any kind of THC product in months. And then I looked at how they were testing. So apparently my test strips were for 40 nanograms, and they used a 20 nanogram test strip, which is basically more potent. So tip to you all, if you need at-home test, do a 20 nanogram test. That's what the labs do. I then bought some of those and saw that, yeah, I was still failing. And I was like, why is this goddamn fucking weed taking so much time to metabolize out of my system? You'd think I was like eating a pot brownie every weekend for like dinner. And so I was just keeping it in my system. It's like, no, I smoked like once, like fucking almost 2 months ago now at this point. And now it's still in my system. This isn't the first time this has happened either, but the other time was edible. So that's what I blamed. But this time it made even less sense. Anyway, weeks go by. I wait until I am passing these 20 nanogram drug tests, which to my surprise, not really, I started passing pretty much the second day after I got them. It was just all over the place for me. Maybe the first one was even a dud. Who knows? I was frustrated at this point. I hadn't been on my medicine, not sleeping, not eating great, not feeling great. Everything sucks in these regressing phases of my mental health, and it's awful. And now I have to wait on my medical marijuana card to come in. So the doctor recommends it. It goes to the state. It can take up to 15 days for the state to do anything about this. And I don't have another doctor's appointment until February. So I'm freaking out. Actually, before I got the 20 nanogram test, I actually go back the same week. So I was like, just come back in a few days. You should be fine. You know, it should be out of your system by then. And it wasn't. So I failed again. It was starting to look real bad on everybody because it looked like I was a liar. It looked like they were a liar. It looked like nothing made sense. And most importantly, they were upset they couldn't, prescribe their client their medication that they needed. And I'm upset for that same reason because I need the fucking medication. I'm having a shithole time. So now it's a waiting game. I'm passing the at-home drug test. Do like 3 every week. It's becoming an obsession. I start having panic attacks about taking my drug test every morning. It becomes this routine of hopelessness, trying to create hope. Even though everything looks fine, it's like, why can't I just get this now? Finally, I get an update on the card. It's been shipped. This is after 10 days. Okay. After 10 days, it ships. Then it says it'll get there the following Monday. I get no updates at all. Nothing changes for like 5 more days. So I work with my therapist and we're just like, okay, we're waiting too long. You're regressing. I'm not able to actually, help you with anything through this. It's literally just a medication problem. Like we can't do anything else here. You don't have the tools that you normally need. And, just make an appointment. Go ahead and make an appointment. You're passing your drug test. Even if we can't resolve the overall medical thing for the marijuana right now, you can at least go ahead and get your prescription. You can even at least talk to them about it. And my anxious brain is like, I don't want to do that. They're going to be mad because I don't pass the drug test because they think I'm a drug addict and pothead, even though that's not true at all. That's how my brain thinks. And she, of course, assures me, no, you need your medicine. You're allowed to take your medicine. You can't be in trouble with other adults. You pay these people. Go and get your fucking medicine. So I do that. And I make my appointment, but they can't get me in until the next week. So that I had a doctor's appointment that week anyway, but I figured, fuck it, go ahead and let them make the second appointment because the other one's for labs, this one's for a consultation. I need my medicine sooner than later. I'd rather have it at the beginning of the week and survive the week better than not have it at all. So I do that, and then Friday of that same week rolls around, and I finally get a notification on the medical marijuana card. Lady from the government calls me and is like, hey, we're trying to make you an appointment so we can get you your card. When can you come in? And I was like, well, as soon as possible, of course. And they were able to make me an appointment the same day as my consultation appointment, which this worked out great. So I went and I got my medical card at 10 a.m., walked into the Department of Health building. Weirdest fucking experience. I walk in, there's cops at the front, but not like cops guarding stuff. There's cops at like a teller desk behind some walls, just sitting there, they're just greeting you as you come in. So I guess they're just guys to say hello for you. So I walk in, and then there is a 3-path fork in the road. So I can go left, which I guess is not a fork. A fork technically is 4-pronged if you think about silverware, but a fork in the road is usually 2 paths. Anyway, sorry. There's a trident in the road, I should say, of a path straight forward down a hall that looked like I wasn't supposed to go there. And, hacker brain in me thinks, oh, go to places you're not supposed to go. And I repress that thought and move along, save that for the day job. Go to the left. Seems like there's a bunch more, teller-looking boxes. You take a number type thing, go sit down and wait. And then there's a door to the right that looks like it goes to a broom closet. So I go to the left because that seems like it makes the most sense. There's a little sign-in kiosk. I sign in. When I go to sign in, though, I notice my appointment type, which was the medical card pickup, wasn't there. So I just selected other, and it prints out me a little number. And I'm sitting there, and there's not a whole lot of people there, thankfully. Some lady's already up there talking to somebody. About 5 minutes go by. I am like 1 minute until my appointment time, so I think I'm going to be late, and I don't like being late to government things because even though they're all about hurry up and wait, if you show up late, they'll use that as a way to deny you, even though it was going to take another 30 minutes to see you. Anyway, whole thing in my brain circulating around. My number finally gets called. I go up there. I tell her what I'm there for. There's like 2 minutes to spare until I have to go to my actual appointment. And they're like, oh, cool, you're here for that. Go to that little closet across the hall, the broom-looking closet that I mentioned before, and they'll take care of you in there. So I walk all the way over there, and I see the sign Vital Records. So there's this little room for vital records. And I think, oh, okay, I guess maybe it's a record since it's a card. That might make sense. But this is where people are getting like, new copies of their birth certificates and stuff like that if something's been lost. In fact, there's one man in front of me, and that's what he's doing. So I wait. And then I get up to the window again, and the lady asks me what I'm here for. I tell her, and she's like, oh, well, and then another lady walks up with a cane behind her and is like, you'll actually need to see her. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm frazzled at this point. I hadn't slept in about 3 days. Today is the most anxious day of any day because today I'm hopefully getting my medicine. I'm having to have a big scary conversation with my doctor. I think the world is against me. Everything is falling apart in my mind. Everything seems terrible. Of course, if you've heard the stories so far, listening in, especially with the tangents, you know that this was ridiculous to be anxious about. But that's how anxiety works. Fun fact. If it seems like it should go okay, your brain tells you it won't, and you spiral out of control, and it sucks. Anyway, so I talked to the lady. She says for me to just go sit down, and she'll be with me in a minute. And she walks back behind a corner, and I'm sitting for like good 5 minutes. Now, the reason I'm sitting for a good 5 minutes is because that's not what she told me to do. She didn't tell me to just sit down where the seat was and wait. What she told me was to go into another closet within this closet. Now, I'm serious. This room was the size of like a reasonably sized king-size closet. Like if you're in like a 3 or 4 bedroom home and the master suite has a nice closet, it's like the size of one of those. Well, there's like an actual janitor's broom closet inside this closet looking space, and she had told me to go back in there. So she comes out again and it's like, hey, can you go wait for me in there? And I was like, oh yeah, sorry. And I get up and I walk in, and the room is dark and it's a closet, and there's just another teller window. It's just me, one teller window, and a chair in the dark room. And I sit down in the dark, and she looks at me and is like, you're just gonna sit in the dark? And I was like, I'm gonna be honest, ma'am, I did not know there was a light. Where's the light? And she like, it's right behind you. And I was like, okay. Turned it on. I looked at her, I said, I'm having a rough morning, like, sorry if I misheard you telling me to go there or whatever. She's like, it's fine, whatever. Then she starts going through the rigmarole. She's actually super nice. She's super knowledgeable about the medical card and is like, hey, this has actually been helping a ton of people. She re-explained the rules that I already knew to me, but it was nice to hear those affirmed, so it wasn't just nonsense on the website. Everything seemed consistent. The medical marijuana card gathering experience is the most consistent government experience I've ever had. DMV takes some notes. Anyway, after all that, she gives me the card, and I'm upset that the card's not physically green. I can't say I have a green card, so sorry. No more offensive jokes from that. But it is like a little peach card, Georgia. That's how it works. I wonder how it looks in other states. So I go to my doctor's appointment after working for a couple hours, and I am freaking out. While I'm working, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not all there. I'm just like going through the motions. I'm running different scripts. I'm catting out some credentials and trying to reuse them. I'm doing my best to just do the bare minimum and not break anything until I can go to my doctor. So I go to the doctor and I tell the nurse who gets me in, what's going on, and give her the updates and say, yeah, so I got the medical card now. And she was like, oh, well, we've been able to, get people who have those and get that on their record and have it not be a problem anymore. So you should be okay. I've seen that happen a couple times. And there it was, the hope, the light. Because my backup plan to all this was to have to go find a new psychiatrist that could just prescribe them this medicine and would also honor the card. At that point, that's why it's important to acknowledge it's per practice. A practice does not have to do this. It's optional. It's really dumb if they don't, but it is completely optional. So my only other option, if they said, nah, we can't do anything for you, was either go find a new psychiatrist that would do it or go find another doctor that would do it. And that was going to be a headache. So I came prepared. I came clean. I've been passing drug tests for months. I've been not doing anything nefarious at all whatsoever. I am clean as a whistle. Hydrated too. Drank some Liquid Deaths on the way there. We were ready to go. Ready to pass this P test no matter what they said. So at least they could give me a refill. I would be good for the next 90 days while I hunt for a new doctor. That was the worst case scenario. So the nurse saying that was like, oh, I don't have to change anything? I can just be normal and not worry about my medication ever again? That's great. So my LPN, who's the main one that works with me, walked in and was like, okay, so I heard you want to talk about your medication, what's going on, all that kind of stuff. And so I re-explained it to her, just so I'm sure she was kind of corroborating the details from what the nurse told her versus what I'm telling her face to face. So just tell her the same thing again. And she was like, yeah, she started apologizing. She's like, I'm sorry, we couldn't get to you. I know you've not been having a good time. We tried to get in faster. The urinary lab, whatever, people working there, they were trying to help you out by, not having to make the appointments and all that kind of stuff. But there was just nothing we can do at that point. She's like, if I could just write it and not lose my job, I would, but we can't do that. She said, but since you have the medical card, we can add that to your record and it won't be a problem anymore. And I was like, oh my God, Jesus might be real. This is the best. Yeah. And they just took it. But what was funny to me, I don't know if she meant for me to hear this, but I certainly heard it, is she asked me if I was ready to take the P test. And I was like, yeah, let's go for it. We're ready. There's no reason it shouldn't pass today. I even made the joke, like, I'm gonna pass today no matter what. And she's like, okay. So she walks by the nurse and tells her to bring me, the cup. And she's like, it may or may not. That's what she says to her. And then the nurse comes up to me and brings me the cup. And she's walking with me down to the bathroom before she leaves me off. And she's like, she said it may or may not pass. And to me at this point, it doesn't matter. But I care a lot because I had to abstain for so long and be in this much pain with no relief whatsoever. I'm like, it better pass, is what I told her. And she's like, oh, okay. And so bring it to her. I don't know if it passed or not because it didn't matter anymore at this rate. Obviously, it passed with everything except for THC, at least. Like, even if that failed, it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, so I was able to get my medicine, and it's literally night and day. I actually didn't feel better until I had the bottle of pills in my hand. It did not matter until that was just kind of the mission was complete. Once I had it, it was like, oh, this is great. I have my medicine now. I've got 2 refills of this before I have to go back and take a P test. And even when I do, as long as I haven't been doing, heroin for the last 3 months. I should be okay, which not a problem for me, man. That's easy peasy. So, yeah, it was truly night and day. Literally that night, went outside, smoked a joint, relaxed, played games with my friends, and then got some fucking sleep. Now, still got a lot of sleep to recover from, so my band had rescheduled rehearsal for that next day. So the next day I just kind of relaxed again. I was able to take my medicine to go to sleep and actually get a full night of sleep, and I feel so much better. It's truly night and day. Just the relief I feel of having access to the tools that help me operate day to day. I'm not really thinking about it anymore. I don't have to worry about, do I have the medicine, do this. It really makes you feel like a junkie even when you're not. It's like, oh, I don't have my medicine, but I'm not itching for a fix. I'm itching for safety. Like, now that I know that it's in my cabinet when I need it, I'm okay. I feel so much better. I can go get it if I'm having a bad time and I really do need it. I can go get it if I'm spiraling up at night and asleep. But I'm no longer having anxiety about having anxiety because I can't get my anxiety medication. That is a fucked loop that I've been in for the last couple months. It really just sucked. So that is what is up, Doc. We're back on the meds. We're not Kanye Weston anymore. We might be smoking a doobie every so often, but we are, I guess, legally allowed to. Right? That's how that works. You wouldn't know if it was Delta 8 grass or not. That's legal. So just being tongue-in-cheek here, everyone. But remember, take care of your brains. Your medicine is important. And I'm sure if you've been on medication before, you've probably been through a rigmarole like this. This is hopefully the last time I have to deal with anything like this. It's been something that's always been scary. I feel like the only other time we'll have to deal with something like this is if we are changing my medication plan entirely for some other reason. So it worked. Go medical marijuana, legalize it in general. That would be great. But now I don't really have to worry about it anymore. And if you are having trouble with medication like this and your medication does not conflict with marijuana, that's important. Most don't. So you're generally okay. This might be a good idea. Marijuana really does help me with PTSD, and it helps me with my eating disorder a ton. The munchies are no joke. And if I have not eaten all week, and I'm like, damn it, Casey, you need to eat, I can take a couple edibles, sit on the couch, and about 30 minutes, I'll be ready to eat. It helps. It helps a ton. And, just being able to relax, not worry about, these deep, dark thoughts of trauma that I've had to experience in the past when I don't want to. It's one thing, you shouldn't avoid stuff like that. It's one thing to be avoidant, but it's another thing when you're just tired, man. You want to just feel normal for a bit. You just want to feel okay. Helps me with that a lot. And then having a way to fight off the panic attack so I can be a functional human being in society and I don't have to hide it and mask it all the time is incredible. The amount of times I apologized to my bandmates for seeming grumpy last week, I think it was only 3 times, maybe 2, but that's too damn high. I shouldn't have to feel like I need to apologize for the state of my mental health, especially to people who care. But that's how my brain felt. So take your medicine. Go talk to your doctors. Get the help you need. And remember, don't let them tell you no unless you're just wrong. Know when you're wrong. That's hard. But if you actually need shit and get shit done, don't be scared of your doctors is really what I'm saying. You do pay them. You can't be in trouble with other adults, and you need your medicine. If you actually need your medicine, you need your medicine. That's what it's for, and you don't have to feel guilty for it. I need to hear that sometimes. I hope no one else does. But if I do, there might be somebody else who does. And that's the shared experience. So that's it for this episode. I will talk to you in the next one. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later. I wanted to wait explicitly until the last day of the month for this one because it literally only happened on Monday, which was 2 days ago, so I could actually tell the story and wrap it up and show you how it goes. So yeah, we'll catch you in next month's episode, whatever that's going to be about. Stay tuned for more music. Le Mans is playing a show in February on the 17th down at Nonick. Don't miss it. It hasn't been announced yet. You got your first exclusive here. Goodbye.
Finally waking up, I feel just like a ghost. Only time I ever sleep right is when I overstate the conversation. Now my heart is barely racing. I've got promises to keep that I won't but I will be the fucking good guy. This time it's a new love. You can tell your wrong, so taking